What are you doing?
I'm just looking at the world and writing a new piano piece.
Oh yeah? Can I hear it?
Mm-hmm.
What's this one about?
Well, I was thinking we don't really have any photographs of us, and I thought this song could be like a photograph. Captures us in this moment in our lives together.
I like her photograph. I can see you in it.
I am.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to episode 51 of the Mind Clash podcast. With the whole crew here today and a ton of great guests, we are going to skip right into the intros and try to keep things short for our guests who are waking up late in the evening or shirking their spousely duties. We will start...
In the morning.
Well, super morning, eh? We'll start at the top. Jason Knight, tell us who you are. Who do you fly with?
I'm Jason Knight in CO2. I also SC for them for, I believe, in EUTs.
Excellent. Beppe.
I'm Beppe. I am a head FC and diplomat for Circle of Two, and that's about it.
Beautiful. Claire.
Hi, I'm Claire. I am a member of Triumvirate in Avalanche Corporation, and we just moved over from Test a little over a month ago, so I was formerly with Test.
Beautiful. Dunk Dinkle.
I'm Dunk Dinkle, and you're not. And I'm with Brave Newbies. I've been with Brave Newbies since the 5th day they were in existence.
That's pretty original. Kael, how's it going?
Oh, it's going, man. Yeah, Kael Decadence. I am coming at you live from training area number 52 in beautiful North Fort Hood training area. So I'm on my phone.
I'm a training area 51 kind of guy.
I feel you.
We lost you last week. We missed you. I couldn't find you.
Yeah. So literally, as soon as we got out to our training area on Monday morning, my supervisor ran over my phone with a Humvee and smashed it to bits. It was purely accidental, I promise, but I got a new one now.
Holy shit.
Yeah, OtterBox does not hold weight from a Humvee.
as a tragic outcome for your phone. But we are happy you're here this week. I am Meredudd. I am a pilot in Iron Armada, currently flying around Fountain, sometimes shooting things. We take wormholes places. Playing way too much Overwatch. I don't want to talk about it. Moving right on. This.
Let's get ready to rumble!
No, we're not talking about the boxing match this week. We are talking about the huge heaping piles of drama that is going on right now on Reddit, in the South, everywhere you can find propaganda in all of its propaganda forms. Mostly focusing around the reset of Circle 2 and Test, former friends, now frenemies, enemies. We'll get into it.
I think it's closer to frenemies, but more leaning on the side of enemy.
For sure.
Friendly enemies, indeed.
But let's get into the history. We have members from all the groups represented here. They could tell us what happened from the inside. Let's start with the history. Circle of Two obviously was part of the Imperium in the World War B, or the Casino War, depends what side of the propaganda you stand on. And Test was one of the attacking parties in the war against the Imperium. When Veil of the Silent fell, Test took to living in Veil of the Silent around the same time that Circle of Two backstabbed the Imperium and left to stand on their own 2 feet, while the rest of the Imperium was left to be pushed from their space, leaving them as neighbors. And as 2 medium-sized groups, they either had to be friends or enemies.
I think backstabbing is kind of harsh word.
I mean, that was the narrative at the time. Does anyone have an opinion from the inside?
I believe CO2's exit was probably coming for a long time. Even from the outside, I could see it. But I think Beppe was there for the whole thing while the reset happened. I joined CO2 after the reset during when CO2 started fighting PL.
Yeah, I was there, and from our perspective, it wasn't really a backstab because we waited till after that last MTACO fight. But I can definitely understand why the goons would see it as such, because it was pretty abrupt.
I mean, I was in Circle 2 at the time of the flip, and I just felt caught off guard, as the Imperium at the time, and still today, is kind of everybody works together on little operations within their social groups, and it felt like that was a stripping of those social groups, so that was kind of a band-aid I didn't really like to get ripped off.
Yeah, I mean, it was abrupt for both sides. There was maybe a little bit of suspicion that was coming, at least from the CO2 pilots, but I don't think anyone expected it to go down quite like it did.
Yeah. So after that, Test took up roots in Veil of the Silent. I'm pretty happy there. And CO2 continued living in Tribute. What kind of happened between the relationship between those 2 groups in that period?
Well, as was pointed out, we were kind of living right next to each other, and it was either a choice of being enemies or not. And I think the propaganda wave we were still riding pretty high off that following the SWAT. And it just kind of seemed like a natural evolution that we would be friends. Billy was saying on the Meta show the other day that it was more of a geographic convenience for Test, but I think, and that could be how it started, but I think that over time it developed into more of a partnership and friendship.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of working together and a lot of between the line members in both groups at that time, and then even going forward into Catch.
Yeah, especially going forward into Catch, as the Tribute War started developing and Test started throwing down to help Circle of Two. They really did put their heart and soul into helping us defend Tribute, and we held off NCPL, PanFam, Horde, everyone for a good 3 months, I think it was. And I think that more than anything kind of cemented the bond between the line members of CO2 and Test.
But as you kind of foreshadowed there, it was not to be. Eventually, you guys were pushed from Tribute and Vale, right? Vale was more abandoned, right?
Yeah, we fought in Tribute, and I think Whale, we didn't really fight him after that.
No, the decision was made to leave Vale. I guess from what I've heard, there's a good likelihood that NC and Pandemic Legion would not have wanted to evict Test and would have instead rather farm them and poach good pilots from them and keep them there. But Test decided that it wasn't a good place for them to grow. They wanted to grow their cap fleet, their super fleet, and really be in a place where they wouldn't get kicked out again. And they couldn't do that under NCPL supers.
And Circle of Two at that time, we'd just lost pretty much everything space-wise, and we were also looking for a new place to kind of rebuild. So it kind of seemed like a natural progression that we'd move together with Test.
I mean, we'll get more into being farmed by NCPL supers, but moving on from there, you guys took up new routes in the south. What was the conditions in the south when CO2 and Test decided to move south?
South was kind of a chaotic collection between Stainwagon. It didn't really seem like an organized defense at first until kind of later on in the catch campaign. So I think the first week, maybe two, we were able to make good progress with Test. And we started getting some setbacks. The Stainwagon people were getting a little more organized. They were starting to bring goons in, and yeah, I don't know. It was kind of a weird war. We had just lost Tribute. Vale had just been abandoned by Test, and we felt pretty dialed on our PvP capabilities because that's all both of us had been doing for about 3 months. But go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I definitely felt lighter than what we were doing in Tribute personally, and yeah, I didn't feel as much of a pressure as fighting in CPL did, but it was definitely fun. Still, I think most of the pilots enjoyed it. Fun both sides.
I think it was especially fun to be able to fight in a subcap battle and not have to worry about a super umbrella getting dropped on us.
Yeah, that was a big change from the previous war. On the downside, however, it meant a lot of Russian time zone time structures, which was not so fun.
Yeah, no, that was a grind. That sucked.
Yeah, I remember when I was still Imperium, we deployed out to try to interdict that moving into the south, and there was like a good week of fights there, but that was kind of set up as the time when you could anchor a Fortizar in, I think you guys anchored a Fortizar right in Soviet Union's home system, and then won the initial timer, and then that was it.
I think that was V-3 that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, V-3 was one of the, I guess it was a great example of how Citadels have changed the shape of Sov warfare. Is that you didn't have to hit any of the Sov structures in V3, you just had to get a Citadel up in there, and you get pretty much free reign to then harass the enemy and make it so that they can't live in their own staging, and you've sort of won the region at that point. Especially in a region like Ketch, where V3 is really important for projecting power into both southern and northern Ketch.
So yeah, that was a short deployment for the Imperium, but you guys definitely hung around. You ended up taking about 4 regions. Which 4 regions were that?
Test moved into Esoteria and then took out Paragon Sol as rental space.
And passed in Fatalis for CO2. Those were the two.
Well, part of it
one
that was.
pocket. Yeah, part of it. And then we held the one pocket, which shared with Brave.
Jason, you're coming in really quiet.
Sorry, I'm gonna fix it. Give me a sec.
Great. And then that left Catch region, which is kind of in the middle there, as a war zone.
Well, I think the original intention was to not leave it as a war zone because, I mean, it was still a little bit of shambles as we moved into those 4 regions, but we had plans from the very beginning to set up Blues and Catch just so that our logistics chain to Empire wouldn't be through hostile territory.
So is this around this point where you begin calling yourself, or kind of get assigned the title as the Legacy Coalition? And I think Brave joined the Legacy Coalition soon after, right?
Not exactly sure when the name Legacy Coalition was actually official, but I know the idea was kind of born as Test and CO2 were making plans to leave Veil of the Silent. It was born out of this concept of, setting up a competent and effective coalition that could stand up against PanFam, because at the time PanFam was viewed, and it still is by most people, as one of the biggest threats in the game. And the whole point of Legacy was to slowly build something that could stand up to that.
How was that transition for you, Dunk? I mean, for Brave in general.
Well, we had been up in Fade for a while. We had gone up with our French corp, Beyond Frontiers, and we're actually partnering with Pandemic Horde in creating kind of like a Aquarius Fight Club kind of thing up there in Fade for a while. But if you make an agreement with Pandemic Horde, it doesn't mean you have an agreement with Pandemic Legion. And so PL started coming into Fade and reinforcing stuff and basically pushing us. At the same time, Gobbins and Pandemic Horde wanted to kind of take over Cloud Ring. So we, in a kind of Coalition Light, all moved into Cloud Ring. And we said, okay, well, we'll be fine here. But then the PL people had different intent. So for us, we got getting hammered in Fade, getting hammered in Cloud Ring. And Pandemic Horde was in a bind. They were our partner. They were blue, but they couldn't help us against PL, and they didn't want to shoot us. So we were in a bad way. We didn't have a lot of options left over. So, we talked to everyone in the game pretty much, and Test and CO2 were kind of come on down with us. And for Test and Brave, it kind of was reforming the days of Hero Coalition down in Ketch from a couple of years ago. So we were happy to have some friends around us, a little bit more of an umbrella when you're a group that can field 25 caps, and then having some friends with super caps, that's awfully nice.
All right, so that's kind of the history. Are there any more points between that and the recent history that we're missing out on? I know there was a couple deployments and kind of politics moved around, but it was kind of more of a securing and a stabilizing in the South, right?
Yeah, pretty much that's what it was. I mean, around that same time, that's when I left from Phoenix Alliance, and then we kind of moved in with CO2. But I mean, we weren't too far away. We were still kind of blue-ish. So yeah, like you said, it was just still kind of securing a foothold there.
We were grinding citadels for months and months and months. It was a solid 8 weeks since we moved in before we were even getting towards the end of them.
Same kind of goes with timers. Towards the end of that invasion of the South, the Steinwagen Soviet Union people kind of rolled over and just abandoned it. And even without them defending timers, it took a good month to clear out everything.
Yeah, there were several regions at that time that were kind of sparsely populated, or kind of paper tiger regions. I know Aquarius at the time was also in a similar position, and when they were any pressure was placed on them, they just collapsed and bailed.
Well, I mean, without the support of their valued goon allies.
All right, so let's jump in the last couple months. There was most recently a war in the north caused by the Imperium moving north, be it to seek content, to seek some revenge, whatever they were seeking, they went up north. They deployed to Ijonen, which is just outside of Tribute. From my sources, I heard that they were going to literally make it terrible to live in Tribute. Tribute owned now by NC, and I think Mercenary Coalition has some space there.
No, they're not trying to make it terrible. They're trying to enhance the immersion, man.
Right, make it better for everyone.
Right, so you're with it now.
Gotcha. So they deployed there, super capitals, everything. NCPL couldn't be happier that this new juicy target was just outside their front doors. Great fighting ensued. But in the meanwhile, more stuff was going down in the east, right? Can you give me a little bit of perspective on what was going on with Triumvirate and the Drone Region Federation?
So this was right around the time that my corporation joined. So I'm not so sure what happened. The details of the falling out of like Manifesto and uncovering that they may have been scheming against Triumvirate, trying to backstab the rest of Vanguard Coalition in order to go and jump sides to FCON. Triumvirate was considering leaving the DRF. They announced a few weeks ago that they would be unbluing the DRF. They told the DRF several weeks before that, around the beginning of last month, that Tri would be no longer a member of the DRF. We gave up all of our SOV that was still in the drone lands, sold some of it, just dropped the rest of it, sold structures, got rid of citadels, everything as a sign of we don't want, we're not going to invade the drone lands. We're not going to give you back your SOV and then come around and take it. Then we announced that we'd be going to war with FCON because we just realized that, from what I understand, again, I'm just a line member here, but that the situation was untenable to be totally surrounded by entities that are hostile and were actively looking to invade us. So we decided that the best defense is a good offense and went after FCON.
And some context here, Triumvirate is kind of definitely a military-based organization, and they thrive and live off combat. As much as that can be said about any group within EVE, but Triumvirate, this is really key to their core identity, correct?
Yeah, Test recently called us content whores or content sluts. I can't remember which one, but it's true. We are a very PvP-focused group. We don't do a whole lot of industry beyond what we need to support that. We don't have a huge industry wing. When we have a fleet go out, there's 90 people in Alliance at night or something, and there's 87 in fleet. Like it's almost everybody is going on a fleet. It's what we're here for. It's what we love to do. It's why we play this game. It's why we sub 4 or 5 accounts each, and it's what keeps us logging in.
I mean, that's good reason as any.
It's better than most in my mind.
So at this point, Test decided that they wanted to get in on what was apparently a content platter up in the north, with Imperium feeding into PL and NC Titans and Supers being dropped in almost every fight, dread balls everywhere. So how does Test arrange getting up to the north, which is a long way from the south, obviously?
Well, that actually happened first. So Test went on its northern deployment before the Imperium did. So Test deployed to MTO to attack Guardians of the Galaxy and Sword Dragon. There's a long-standing feud, I guess you could call it, between Pro God Legend and Sword Dragon that came out of some words that were exchanged at a bar years ago. They don't like each other very much. So to provide content for Test, they moved up there, and they went via the drone regions, blew the drone regions, and were given usage of a Fortizar there. And we've later learned that the part of that deal was that if Tri attacked FCON, that Test would join the war on the side of FCON against Triumvirate. And then once the Imperium deployed to the north, at that point, Test redeployed from MTO into OB to better be a part of the fights that were being generated in that region by PLNC and the Imperium.
And that fight got bloody. There was a good week of conflict there, right? That was really bloody. Lots of fights. We have later on in the show, we're going to cover a little bit of that. Some good war reporting being done. Was everyone here kind of half involved in that?
I wasn't up there at all. I was only watching it.
Same here.
Yeah, at the same time when all that was going up north, Brave has been fighting in Stain pretty much every day against various Wild Souls, Red, a bunch of people as we try and battling over the moon. So for us, while everyone was fighting north, we were holding the line in Stain against the evilness down there.
Mostly Russians still?
I don't. Whoever they were, who were the Stain people that live in NPC Stain? They're the people we were fighting. So whether they're all Russians or not, I don't know. But definitely the timers are sometimes not fun.
I believe it was mostly Stainwagon. After we removed them from Stain a few months ago, they took some Sovereign Fountain, but I believe once Test deployed to the north, they came back to Stain.
Yeah, pretty much daily. Even now, we're going back and forth with the Money Moons, and there are skirmishes all the time. And then besides that, wherever Brave goes, people fly their ships there and then want to fight us. So we've been fighting every day. That's why it's funny when people talk about the blue donut. For people in Brave, it doesn't feel like a blue donut to us very much.
All right, so what happened here? Things started to derail quickly. Was the first move Test going back, returning home from their deployment? Is that the first domino?
Well, from what I understood, what I've been told from Brave's point of view, there had been discussions going on for a while about this interlocking, crazy World War I style of agreements that had all been made, none of them by Brave, and that it was getting more and more complex. And I don't know how long that had been going on, but that was going on when I think Test was still north, but I could be mistaken.
Yeah, I don't have access to everything, but I've definitely heard some rumors and things that suggest that the current situation we are in with Test and CO2 and Brave and people resetting and all that is not a spur of the moment decision, and that it's actually been something that's been tossed around and in the works and kind of moved towards for at least a month, but more like several months now.
So what I'm trying to allude here at is Test utilized the drone region federations in order to get to the north to their deployment, utilizing their citadels as a highway to deploy their supers and titans, which is super useful. You don't have to set up your own. Safe. And then when they returned, followed by the Imperium's deployment ending due to probably catastrophic losses and a lack of wanting to log in, or to save their Rorquals back in the home field. Then we had this reset. So let's get into what happened here. How did this, besides the underlying subcurrents of maybe someone has called some other people names too many times in leadership chat, what has happened here? This seemed to all come out kind of as leaks and logs and...
Well, I think at this point in the timeline of events, it's kind of where you get into narrative territory on either side. I think there's three sides to every story. There's your side, and the truth. From the CO2 perspective, there's kind of a few things that have played a part in this, and we're certainly not blameless in this. I think there's been a breakdown in communications in the last couple months between us and the rest of Legacy. We, after a few months of having lots of content and catch, things kind of started quieting down as I think Dunk just said it a few minutes ago when Stainwagon kind of went off to Fountain or whatever. Things were quiet in catch, and we in CO2 were kind of thinking, okay, things are stabilized. Our people have a good grip on the region. We're going to start focusing on doing our own stuff to kind of rebuild a little bit. And we, speaking as an FC at that point in time, I'd kind of keep an eye on the coordination channel, the Legacy Discord, and I'd occasionally see someone asking for, if we were coming for a timer or anything. But I guess, and again, speaking for myself, I wasn't, really looking that hard to see if they're asking for help because they need it or just kind of generally inviting to the people to the party. And yeah, it just kind of seemed like everyone had a good grip on things when on their end it probably looked like we were just kind of not really helping out that much.
So I'd just like to step in here and say thank you to Jason Knight for coming and speaking with us. He had to run off to classes. He had to step out. So when you say building, like CO2 building their activity back up, like getting back into military shape?
No, CO2 had the SH1 super capital. Well, we had to rebuild that, so we were focusing on industry to kind of mine and recoup those losses. We were trying to get our members to rat and build up their risk wallets again. And kind of early on in our time in Impasse, we had another super capital whelp in FR TAC that started with a tackled Rorqual that had had two YOLO Titans jump in to try and save it, which triggered a dread bomb and then another big whelp that we had to recover from. So, I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on that we were trying to recover from to get to where we were before the Tribute War, and then we had plans for building up even beyond that as well.
I mean, a super capital under everyone's pillow. It's not a bad way to fly, I guess.
Yeah, and that was definitely the goal. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, the whole point of Legacy was to build up a coalition that could stand up against PanFam, and the biggest way for us to do that was to get more pilots and super capitals, get more pilots and dreadnoughts and faxes, especially faxes, and we were focusing on that for our end. We assumed everyone else in Legacy was working on that as well. I remember ProGod at one point mentioning his Manhattan project with building like 500 dreadnoughts. So that was kind of our focus at the time.
That was terrible. Mining, we were mining in battleships, okay? Like, it was not a good time.
You guys playing Eve 2004? Or?
We were mining in maelstroms.
Roke mining for the win.
All right, so when does Circle of Two decide FCON, we've had enough of those guys, we're going to stab them?
So this didn't even start with FCON. Oh, go ahead, Kael.
So you keep saying that stab word.
It's the word of the month.
It seems stabby.
Yeah. So this didn't even start with FCON. This started over an agreement that, from our understanding, we had in Faith Abylis that eventually Solar would turn over Faith Abylis to us. And it came time for that agreement at one point, and it didn't. The transfer didn't happen, so we started hitting the R97 system in Southern Faith Abylis. And I think there was some Diplo work done on test side to say, hold off on that. We're going to delay this a little bit for some reason. I wasn't a Diplo at the time. I've only been recently brought onto that. So it's this is a lot of catch up on my part. But after another 3 months or so where, we still weren't having stuff that we thought was ours turned over to us in Faith Abylis, and getting scattered reports of either Russian renters or Russians themselves harassing our renters in Faith Abylis, the trigger was kind of pulled to, okay, we're going to take R97 and because we're done waiting, and that's just going to be how it is. And then, of course, Russians retaliated by hitting our renters, so we retaliated by hitting their renters, and it just kind of spiraled from out of there. At that point, FCON got involved and said, hey, by the way, we have an agreement to defend Wings Wanderers. So if you keep doing this, we're going to be defending them in Faith Abylis. That happened. It was fine at first. We were getting our asses kicked pretty heavily by FCON, Solar, XIX, and Wings Wanderers fleets. I've developed a pretty strong hatred for Feroxes as a result. And It just kind of
we
spread
share
to
in that
FCON from
hatred of
there.
Ferox's.
What's that?
Sorry, I was just going to say we share in that hatred of Ferox's.
Yeah. So that's how this war spread to FCON after FCON kept getting more and more involved in some Phoenix Federation pets. I'm not sure if they're renter or just lesser members of the Phoenix Federation. They started hitting some systems in impasse, at which point GigX said, okay, screw this. We're going to take care of FCON first before we kind of go any further.
So at this point, this is when FCON moves to DRF, correct?
Yes, and again, that was announced well after this war started. We'd been fighting a couple weeks before FCON said, hey, we have an agreement to defend Wings Wanderers. And then it was a few weeks after that they said, oh, by the way, we're joining DRF now.
Hey, Meredudd, real quick, we should probably thank Anduin Spartan for subscribing to us.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Anduin.
Thank you so much. Namaste.
Now, to give some clarity, Drone Regions Federations, for those who don't know, own from pretty much Geminate all the way down to where FCON is now in... What is that region? I've never conquered the South.
Detroit.
Detroit. It's about 11 regions, right? Most of the drone regions now and moving into the South. So they're a large group. And they have a lot of supercarriers and a lot of titans. And there are a lot of players, mostly of Russian time zone. XIX is a major group of them. They're mostly based out of Geminate, correct? And there's lots of renter space as well, but these are well equipped renters from what I know.
We'll see how many supers and titans they actually have, because their latest move up was about 50 supers when they brought some supers in to support FCON. So both Tri and CO2 we can deal with that.
So Test, by being in one of these World War I style agreements with Drone Regions Federation to defend them, step in.
I don't know the specifics of that agreement. I do know that what they said and what was in some of the logs that was leaked were that if Tri attacks FCON, that Test was then bound to support FCON in fighting Tri.
And thus everything begins to break down. This was obviously blown out of proportions by some leaked diplomatic logs between one GigX, not a Diplo, please don't count me as a Diplo GigX, of Circle of Two, and
Dran Arcana, the head lead Diplo of Test Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel inspired, there's some lovely terms used, not typical for most diplomacy as far as I know, unless you are right about to punch the other person in the face.
Well, GigX is pretty famous for hating diplomatic stuff. He'll be the first to admit that he's not a Diplo and he's not good at it. That conversation that was leaked where he's basically telling Dran to F off, that's happening at a time where he's getting bugged about Diplo stuff that he doesn't want to deal with. He has the judge to take care of Diplo stuff, and he has the judge for a reason. Unfortunately, the judge has been unavailable for a few weeks because he's taking care of CSM duties in Iceland, all expenses paid, vacation, really tough work. But he's been unable to deal with a lot of the Diplo stuff, which kind of put GigX in the position of having to deal with that Diplo stuff. And he doesn't have the patience or the temperament for it, and he'll be the first to tell you that.
Okay, you hear it here first. It's all the judge's fault. All right, so how does this leave? So Solar Fleet, FCON, pulling back at full war with CO2, Test, obliged to kind of support DRF. How is Brave left in this situation?
Well, I think it's pretty well known now that our capital FC, Chester Patterson, had been spying for Pandemic Legion for probably upwards of 6 months at least, as far as we can tell, and was feeding all of our command channels, all of our Slacks, Legacy Command. It was all being fed into Pandemic Legion, and from what it appears, Pandemic Legion leaked as we would see it, cherry-picked stuff from our FCs, not our Diplos, and gave it to CO2 to say, look, Legacy is out for you, to help disrupt the whole kind of Legacy thing even further. So that leaks out, and then we're reeling from our Cap FC, our trusted person who flew on our AT team was actually a PL spy. And so that was our first concern was, APIs that had been shared, security of channels, closing. So we're spending time trying to re-secure Brave as much as that's really not possible. And then in the meanwhile, the politics is exploding and REVE is exploding, and it all just starts going super sideways.
Yeah, that is pretty much the deepest of ultimate betrayals. And I mean, for those who didn't know, kind of PL's been following you around, kind of taking advantage of essentially farming you as best you can. And there's been some noble attempts to fight back, as far as I can remember, in the Catch region, for sure.
I'm not really sure why PL has such a hard-on for Brave, but I mean, because of that reason, it is a well-known fact that makes Legacy the perfect coalition for Brave, because that's the whole point of Legacy.
Well, now you are going to be able to farm Brave yourself and learn just how fun it is.
I don't know. We'll see.
They're a great group if you want a PvP. Like, if you're a newer player and you want a PvP and that's really what you want to do, Brave is awesome for that. There's fights there all the time. It's great. You show up in GE TAC and you can almost always guarantee you're going to get a fight.
Yeah, and the average Brave member is pretty happy with the way Legacy has been going, and we have been good mates, as Kagali would say, with CO2 pretty much the entire time. So, for the basic Brave line member, this is all a bunch of WTF, what's going on? Why can't I go to ETAC-Y anymore? And, it sounds weird. We don't really have an axe to grind in any direction other than where did all our friends go?
And for the record, Brave was the only member of Legacy to abstain from voting to kick CO2 out, for which CO2 appreciates that. I think there's an offer on the table for you guys to maintain blue status, but I don't really know how that's going to play out. Probably not, because Legacy isn't going to be happy about that, but we'll see.
And
I don't do a lot of the Diplo stuff, but it's going to get weird fast. I mean, for some reason, and you should probably ask CO2 Diplos or leadership, one of the Fortizars was transferred to Pandemic Legion. That's about four jumps away from us, or 4 gates away from us. So that puts on our doorstep our historic enemy, which you can imagine trying to keep people from not engaging in the Reddit and calling people bad names is what we struggle to do.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is an appropriate time for that, but I can explain the reason for that Fortizar in a few minutes if you want.
All right, you have to go right into it. We're right here on this topic.
All right. So, in the hours leading up to the reset, I was negotiating kind of the reset terms with Dranarchana of Test and kind of figuring out how we were going to handle this. And for the most part, it was a pretty amicable reset. We were working on getting citadels transferred to each other and paid for. We transferred our citadel and head GP to Test, and Dran paid for that. There was a drone walker citadel and 2 test citadels in CO2 Sob that were going to be transferred, but ended up not being transferred after the reset because of the Fortizar in question here. The reason that Fortizar was transferred was because about 2 minutes before the 2000 deadline for the reset, Dran mentioned, got to backtrack a sec here. we had discussed having an NIP with Test a couple times during these negotiations, and every time they said, we're not really comfortable with an NIP because, we can't trust you to maintain that NIP. We don't think GigX will abide by it, that kind of stuff. So 2 minutes before the reset, Dran came to me again and said, hey, you know how you were talking about the NIP? Well, we've been thinking about it, and Impasse is legacy space. So there you go. And they basically told us right there that Test intends to invade Impasse and take it as legacy space, probably set it up as renter space for one or more of the alliances in Legacy. When GigX and Judge found out about that, they were kind of like, okay, if you want to do the Total War thing, we're going to make it a little more interesting down here.
No, I think we understand the play. You just have to understand from Brave's perspective, a Fortizar being transferred to Doom Chinchilla, it can be taken. There's not a lot of other ways to take it other that it's poked at Brave and not at Test. And so we in leadership, we really don't want this to turn into the ultimate, battle royale, where no one comes out alive. But that's a hard one for everyone to stomach right now, is that, it wasn't meant as anything other than directly at Brave and not at Legacy, the wider coalition.
Because it was also given to Doom Chinchilla, and Sino U is where Chester went after leaving Brave, right?
Well, the name of the Fortizar was, gift to Doom Chinchilla or something like that. And, there's probably a lot of social media stuff about mwahaha, take that. And so, it's just a game. I don't take it too seriously, but I think Brave has shown we have tried to stay with everybody and be friends and not fall under the blue donut up north. But it just seems like that's grudges are taking over more than kind of sensible defense. So, look, we're going to fight. We'll do whatever we have to do. But, it's going to be one thing if last time we had a Fortizar 100 capital show up, we can field 25. So, and that's without super showing up. So we have a lot on our hands, but that's why we play the game.
Yeah, and we get that from your perspective. And it's really kind of a shitty situation all around for everyone involved. I think one of the reasons it's kind of starting to get personal is even when Test announced that they were going to reset, we were still kind of hoping for a bromance between the line members. And then we get some Test leaders going on things like the Meta Show. Villy was saying that, Legacy never really liked CO2 that much. They're shitty to work with, et cetera, et cetera. When from our point of view, we thought, we were all friends and we thought it was a legitimate friendship and alliance. And come to find out in hindsight, no, Legacy was just kind of putting on that face for us. So that's why it feels a little personal.
Yeah, respectfully, though, I think those guys can talk for Test because that's who they are. And Test culture is Test culture. And there's a reason Brave isn't Test. But from Brave's perspective, we have tried as leadership and the kind of senior people in Brave to keep our people out of Reddit, out of shit talking, out of being jerks. So I would ask you guys to think about considering that Legacy coalition and Test leadership does not always reflect exactly Brave's opinion any more than Legacy's opinion reflected exactly how CO2 felt.
And a lot of that spin was very confusing to me. I mean, it feels like I say spin. I mean, I guess if that may very well be truth, and that may be how Legacy has always felt about CO2. But I was in Test through most of that time, and it never felt that way then. I don't remember FCON being nearly as helpful to us through our time taking the South or cleansing the South or defending from PL as I remember CO2 being. And yet somehow it's FCON are these dependable allies that always show up, and CO2 never helps us at all. I don't understand it, but that's what they say.
Well, the issue that I see is that our Eve has gone from becoming, hey, let's share some cool shit about Eve, to it's now like the gasoline fire of everything that goes on in Eve Online is there's just so much shit talking that goes on there by people who aren't involved to just kind of create even more fire. And it just, it rubs people the wrong way, and then grudges become personal, and it's not helping, as I would say.
And
Do you think like Reddit propaganda kind of propagated the war a little bit more than it would have been?
I don't say as much the propaganda. I think everyone enjoys the art that people make, and I think people enjoy good propaganda. I don't think 15 replies back and forth between two line members who were not in any of the discussions, being peppered with things from people outside of the discussions in other groups, it doesn't help. It just makes people more angry. Like, that guy on Reddit's from blankety blank corp and he's an asshole, so therefore I'm for war. Like, that doesn't help from our perspective.
And kind of from my personal perspective, not that of CO2, but I do feel like some of the propaganda coming from Try lately on Reddit, that famous Garst post a week or two ago, I think that did kind of help wedge that crack between us and Legacy a little further. I mean, I'm not that familiar with a lot of Try people, so just kind of from my perspective, it seemed like it was adding unnecessary tension to an already tense situation.
Claire, you want to go into how Try is fitting in now? You're deployed against FCON. You're getting involved.
So yeah, we deployed against FCON.
So just before I apologize, but I have to go. My wife invited guests over, so I have to go to dinner. But I appreciate talking with you all. I hope to see you on the grid and not shooting at me sometime soon.
Yeah, man. Thanks for stopping by.
Cheers, Dom.
I appreciate it.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Sorry, go on. Try.
So yeah, so we went to war against FCON. FCON joined the DRF basically as soon, I believe it was the same day that Try announced that it would be resetting all of the drone regions except for Solar. Solar being our direct neighbor, and we've had a long blue relationship with them, and we just decided it was good for everybody if we stayed blue. So we are blue with Solar. They are actually on the other side of this conflict. So we've been on opposite sides of battles and not shooting each other, which is a little awkward, but we're making it work. So FCON announced it was joining the DRF the same day, or very nearly when we announced we would be leaving and resetting everyone. We shortly afterwards announced we'd be going to war with FCON. And with FCON, or with CO2 also fighting with FCON and Drone Regions affiliated groups, we became blue with CO2. So the two of us have been working together. And now we get to be called the Circle of Try, or Circle of Three, or some witty name that somebody who's not me will make up.
But we're doing it with no illusions, because Try said it themselves that they like resetting people after they're done completing their common objectives. So there's no illusions that CO2 or Try will be best bros as of yet. That could be a possibility in the future, but who knows?
Yeah, that's way, way above my pay grade. I just like to shoot things.
So FCON's about 3,000 members, according to Dotland. Are people seeing them as a group that could be finished off here or crushed?
That is what that's our goal. So when we announced we'd be going to war internally, when Garst made his post on our forum saying that we're going to war, he said this is a fight to the end. At the end of this, there's a very good chance that either us or FCON will no longer exist in the same kind of state that we are now. So we are putting it all on the line here.
Meredudd, I think your burrito's ready.
Oh, I hope it's ready. It's fajitas, I think. Stay tuned.
But yeah, with even with us and CO2, I think we're heavily outnumbered by FCON and the DRF, and certainly now that Test has announced that it would be joining the fight on the side of the DRF and FCON against us. So it's an uphill battle.
Yeah.
It sounds like the perfect battle for Try. Given from what I know about your culture of wanting to be in perpetual war, I mean, an end to all end wars is quite something to log into. As long as your pilots are interested in staying logged in for what seems to be like a stilted kind of end-all be-all fight.
For sure. When it's one thing to have content and have fun roams and have nips and be able to just go into a region and have a fight. Like, that's fun and that's great. But when there's meaning behind it, when it's you're taking space or you're protecting your space from somebody who's trying to take it from you, it sort of goes back to the same reason why I think that EVE Online is so much better than so many other games. There's real loss. Like, stuff that took you a long time to make happen can go away. Someone can take it from you. And that just really raises the stakes and makes it that much more interesting to be a part of.
And I'll second that idea. I completely agree. And I think in this particular war as it stands right now, CO2 and Tri are at risk of losing everything, and it ups the stakes for us. If that's not motivation to get in the fight, then I don't know what is.
And that post on Reddit that you mentioned from Garst, I think that was an interesting move on his part. It did sort of swing, I guess, the court of public opinion against Test and the rest of Legacy Coalition. I think a lot of the other groups in EVE are looking at what's going on and realizing that maybe they don't want to work with Test in the future because they don't know how, like, Test is the one that could come out of this looking unstable and untrustworthy. I don't know, maybe.
So there's 2 points here. One, chat is not a fan of GigX for the most part. Kiss, great FC to fly under. He'll get you into a fight.
Yeah, he's absolutely great FC. I mean, we're having fights and fights for days. All it is pings going on Discord left and right.
I wasn't going to guarantee you're going to get out of the fight alive, but you're definitely going to warp to zero and brawl it out. Which, I mean, that's awesome.
That's what it's all about.
What surprises me is there's so many people saying these things about GigX, and I doubt that most of them have ever spoken with him.
Well, he usually speaks at you, from my
Yeah.
So I'm someone who actually converses with GigX fairly regularly. He's really chill to talk to. He's intimidating as fuck. Like, when I first joined CO2, I didn't even want him to know I existed. He's super intimidating, especially with that accent. But as I've gotten to know him, he really is a chill dude. He just has a temper. And when that temper flares, shit, that's kind of the shit that GigX is famous for. But I'd say 90% of the time, he's really cool dude.
And I think I have huge respect for him for the amount of time, effort, and his own assets he's put into CO2. I know that he sold a lot of his own personal possessions in game to help fund CO2 in Tribute or just after. Like, you have to give it to somebody who's going to put all of his own stuff out there for his group.
Yeah, I've never had a alliance CEO that puts as much into his alliance as GigX does. That really is one of the defining characteristics of, I mean, people always wonder, why do people join CO2 when they have an asshole leader like GigX? And it's because of shit like that. GigX pours himself into the alliance. He actually cares.
All right, and then the second issue here is, I have a tinfoil hat here. It's just my size. Is there any kind of subversion here that is going on, perhaps by a third party, to drive a wedge between these two groups and kind of break up the South, making it soft for, say, a larger third party to come in, whether that's DRF, Goons, PLNC?
Oh, I think there's all kinds of subversion on all sides.
Yeah, I think Dunk alluded that he felt that was happening, that PL was taking the logs they were getting from Chester and taking the pieces that they thought might convince CO2 that there was a problem to try and, push them in that direction and make this happen. And the breaking up of the Blue Donut in the South is basically a stated objective of Triumvirate at this point. So I don't know how much backroom stuff Tri's been doing at that end. I have nothing to do with anything that may be happening. But it's definitely something we want. We want more groups fighting.
Yeah, I don't know how much backroom plotting has been done on the DRF side. Like, that's the favorite narrative on Reddit right now, is that UAX Death is masterminding all this. I'm not so sure about that, but I definitely think there's some backroom politics going on the Goon side and the PL side. Whether or not CO2 and Legacy got played into this, I'm still skeptical about, because you can't create a problem in a vacuum. There were underlying problems, and like I said, we're not blameless in this. Test isn't blameless in this. I think the existing problems were just capitalized on.
Yeah, it seems to me, I kind of agree with the Reddit narrative a little bit. I think that the DRF knew Tri was leaving at the time that Test wanted Blue Standings to go through their space. I think that Test may have gotten a little outmaneuvered by the DRF into agreeing to something that the DRF thought was highly likely to bring Test into this conflict.
All right, well, I mean, I've said it for a couple weeks in a row here, but I just don't see it slowing down. Great time to be playing Eve right now.
Oh,
Lots of
absolutely.
things to be doing. If we can just step away from this and maybe into something that is definitely going to influence these conflicts over the next medium term, definitely around Christmas. In Eve News this week, there was announcements that the devlog for how reactions is going to work came out. We are going to be introduced a new service module for all structures that are Upwell built. These service modules will be able to do the things that the POS modules could previously do as far as reactions. So basic, complex, and biochemical reactions. And those will be available soon to test on CC. In that same update, we will be getting a system cost index to keep reactions from becoming just only as a single system kind of thing. Same as mining and industry. Same as the industry index.
Yeah, so not only did you had that update or that announcement come, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday of last week, talking about that, but then now you also have the moon mining platform dev post that came out just today, I believe.
That is true. You can now go on to CC and you can set up a refinery and set up a moon drill and punch a moon and pull some lunch money out of it.
Right in the face. Yeah, if you have not seen the description of the moon mining platform on Sissy, it actually does say that. It's a thing to punch a moon in the face and take its lunch money.
So both those new mechanics, which I'm sure we will get the full suite of intro to with sexy videos and great numbers released to us at Eve Vegas, will be available for testing. That's the Erathanor and Tatara refineries. All of the mechanics and stuff on CC obviously are really early days. Don't expect these to come out in the next monthly release. This is all future stuff that's coming. Obviously, there are tons of bugs. If you are good at finding these bugs or you want to really test these things out, go on to CC, keep the log from the forum with known bugs, and skip through the ones that are already known, but try to report the ones that are not known so we can help push the system forward. Keeping in mind that all of these refinery changes come with a full scramble of the moon minerals, so don't go scouting the CC moons. They will be completely different upon launch day.
Yeah, that's true. But the cool thing is that at least unlike some of the previous kind of pushes and updates, this is coming out. This is going to be a couple months before this actually hits live, so people are going to have a lot of time to play around with it and figure out how to work it, how to make the most of the systems and make the most out of the equipment.
Well, this is a huge change to incomes for alliances.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just a change in income; it's going to be shake up everything again. It's going to be something to fight for, besides what we're fighting for now.
For sure. If you use a lot of T2 ships, you should probably pick up some spares beforehand. I think it's gonna.
Oh, for sure.
It's gonna have an effect on the market.
So those are the two big things. There are more details towards all those things. You can find those in the dev logs for the changes and the CC updates, new skills, personal mining ledgers, all that kind of stuff. If you're a moon miner or you're a regular rock miner and want to upgrade into a moon miner, those things are being slowly seeded onto CC. Super excited for that kind of change. Battle reports. Some big ships killed this week.
A lot of structures killed yesterday, that's for sure, over in our region.
Yeah, a lot of stuff dying with all these wars. Kael, you feature us 26 billion-isk ratting nicks.
Yeah, that, let's see, I don't have the notes, so I can't really look at it right in front of me, but that was... Oh, the reason I put that down there was because a lot of the pilots involved in the winter side were guys from all over the AT.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of familiar AT names here. Skill Yourself, Rokapel, Nullshack, Solupin, and Volta.
Whatever that word is.
Yeah, they've most of them have been hired in some capacity by FCON DRF to harass. It's actually, I believe, a tri-renter Nix. So Nullshack Schlupen, I know, has been involved directly in combat operations against Tri at some of the fights that have come up. I haven't seen Skill Yourself and Rote Capel on the battlefield, but they're getting paid to harass things. Mostly, I think, with Fraternity, one of our other coalition partner, other. I guess they're not really a coalition; they're just helping in the battles.
Fraternity, good guys. And another one from straight off the Reddit, FCON Titan, killed on their Keepstar.
Oh, that was good. I was there for that one.
I think every single one of your dreads got out too.
And we lost one saber. Everything, including the Sino, was extracted. The Titan pilot had undocked his Titan, tabbed out to go watch Game of Thrones, boated out of docking range of his Keepstar. We found it, Sinoed in, tackled, sieged. He got, I think they got 2 cycles of guns off on him. He just melted. And then we were bubbled for a while. We were able to clear tackle, and once our reactivation timers are up, jump out.
Is this the state of things now that a Titan is only worth 69 billion?
It was mega poor fit. I mean, I would be sad if I had that Titan on my kill board.
I mean, things are so cheap nowadays.
There's worse things to lose your Titan over, though. That was a pretty good episode, made up for all the other ones.
I wasn't watching.
No spoilers.
Titan.
That's what I'm doing after.
No spoilers.
We almost got another one this morning, actually. We rage formed dreads and dropped on an Erebus that HK had tackled. But because ECM is a balanced mechanic, some EC300s jammed out the hick, and he was able to jump out. So sad. Right as we loaded grid.
Was that on low sec, or could the hick not bubble?
They could. I think they just missed the chance. I don't know.
Gotcha.
There was even a 30 billion-isk Asbel who died in Hakoden right as we were airing this show. Lots of good fights, lots of good kill mills. Get out there, get in a fleet. If you're not in a group that is participating in any of these big wars, find one. There's lots that are recruiting. Lots of groups that'll take you in. Newbie-friendly groups like Brave, Iron Armada. We're a little bit different kind of fighting, but we are also newbie-friendly. Test has newbie-friendly corps. Circle 2, newbie-friendly corps. Get out there, join a group, get involved with this fighting. I mean, you'll feel different as a line member than this kind of overarching large narrative that we're kind of discussing here on the show, but to be part of it, to be that soldier, maybe that guy who lights that Sino, it feels special.
Yeah, I'm sitting out in the field and I'm talking with some of my buddies, and they're like, man, like what could I do if I just wanted to jump in this game today, and like what difference could I make? And there's absolutely difference like you can be that Sino guy, you can be that Logi, if you train for a week, 2 weeks, you can get in that fight.
Kael, you can speak closer to your mic too. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a great time to be playing Eve. So if you are not logged in, you just listen to this in your car, you're like, man, I gotta log in, I gotta check my PI. Screw that shit. Unanchor all that garbage. Go find a fight. All right, what else we got on the notes here? There are real life meetups all the time. Go to a real life meetup. We had a great one in Vancouver last month. New location, a little bit loud. Some new faces. Good to have them. Eve Dublin is meeting on October 20th and October 21st. I've seen the sweet swag that's available for Eve Dublin. Shot glasses, a couple other things.
Pots of gold.
Putting in the work to make that a great event. If you are in the UK, you got no excuse. Those flights are super cheap. What, a Ryanair flight? What, $50? $30? Probably $30. Glasgow, September 2nd is having a meetup. Melbourne, Australia, September 2nd as well. And Toronto, Canada, you meet a friend of the show, Reload, in the Toronto meetup on September 2nd. Another fresh off the bleeding edge of Reddit, Nosov is holding a blood drive donation. So their group is kind of pushing each other to go and donate blood. It's a good cause. Help some people, help some lives. So they are encouraging the rest of the Eve community to donate blood from October 16th to October 22nd. All the details can be found on Reddit or just search Nosov and the Blood Harvest.
Yeah, and it's totally not, location based. They're just using that, Eve lore as kind of like a push for that. So they're saying blood harvest, but you can do it anywhere. So they're saying, hey, you're an Eve pilot, go out, get blood, let us know, and mad props, really.
Icon, you can raise it up as many ranks as you want, but it's still PI garbage. And do you have any things you want to hype as far as shows or anything? Okay.
What's up? You talking to me?
Yeah. Do you have any shows you want to hype? Anything you've been listening to as you rumble around in the area 52 and a half?
I had any time at all to listen to anything, and then of course with my phone being destroyed, I had to go and reset and resubscribe to all my podcasts, maybe find some new ones and all that. But I did watch Game of Thrones yesterday.
Still no spoilers. That's good. Maybe you'll have to tell us what the new podcast you picked up. I'm gonna push you to go listen to this week's Talking in Stations, where Matterall has on Sir Moyle, Andrew Groen of the Empires of Eve, and Celine from Mercenary Coalition, and they talk about all of the history.
Yeah, I actually was listening to that one this morning on my drive in. That's so far so good. I mean, I read the book from Andrew Groen. It's excellent history, really good stuff, and so you kind of get a more of a first-hand look at that with Sir Molly on there.
I've definitely been reading mine. I read through definitely half of it on my trip. I'm super slow at reading. Don't mock me. You guys have any shows you want to pump, hype?
Well, I was going to suggest Talking in Stations as well. That last episode was good, but Matterall always puts on a good show. But since you took that from me, I'm going to say Taylor Swift's new music video. Fresh new look, fresh new song. Go give it a listen.
Yo, I'm gonna keep it real with you right now. I've had Selena Gomez's new song, "Bad Liar," stuck in my head for like 3 days straight.
What? Okay, that Taylor Swift song is not all that good.
It's not her best work. It's not my favorite thing, but I'm excited for a new album. I hope it's good.
It's no Shake It Off. Beppe, what are you listening to? What are you watching? Tell us something about something we should go check out.
Think the song I've been listening to a lot lately is Black Honey by Thrice. Awesome music video, awesome song. Kind of makes you think. It's a mean, it's a really simple song, simple lyrics, but it's got some deeper meaning. So, yeah, edgy.
Sweet. All right. Well, I have recorded an intro where I repeat all the things about where to go, so I'm not even gonna bother. I mean, come join us on the Discord. We talk about all of the Eve topics that are going on. We grab all the guests who we're going to have on for the week. We have good discussions. We shit talk each other. We make fun of Orion for bragging about all his skills. It's a great place to come hang out and talk to us during the week. And as we're moving out of AT month, it was 18 month, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It feels weird to talk about other Eve. Now that we're over 18 month, we're into the regular kind of Eve topics. We have some topics definitely in mind that we want to cover. Casual gaming around Eve Online, people who play only occasionally and how they enjoy the game. AT logistics is definitely a show we're going to have a talk about. Refineries. Somebody should talk about maybe all of this money that's being made from where it's all going.
Dank money coming in left and right.
And we have a
It's-
long... Go ahead.
It's all in Delve, all of it.
Ticks for days.
But where's it going? We gotta find
It's
it.
just sitting in Delve.
Sitting in Matani's wallet.
Okay, we gotta find it. Get some over to us. Anyways.
But yeah, so like you said, new topics. In fact, next week we're gonna have, I think, about 3 or 4 pilots who are strictly, well, not just strictly, but Eve Valkyrie pilots. So we're gonna have that because I kind of want to tie in, how that's gonna integrate with the new update that's coming to them, because it's gonna be no VR required. So anybody who has a PlayStation 4 or PC can go ahead and enjoy Eve Valkyrie. So it's gonna be interesting to integrate that.
So there you have it. If you're an Eve Valkyrie pilot on the VR and you want to come talk about how we're all going to suck not being on VR, come talk about us next week. For all our guests, for all our listeners live, we had great numbers today. Thank you all for coming out and watching the stream. If you missed any part, you can catch us in post on YouTube, on the video on demand on Twitch, in podcast form via Crossing Zebras, epodcast.com, or mindclash.live. Thank you all for coming. I don't know how many times I've told you in the Discord, on Twitter, 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Mondays for people in North America, Tuesdays for the rest of the world, at 0300 Eve time. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me.
Bye. Thanks for having me.